Hey guys, this is Simon with TRADEnPERFORM Coaching. It is December 31st, 2:11 p.m. My Horned Frogs kick off in about 40 minutes. So I want to do a quick video explaining how we use the Wyckoff waves to give us an added edge to the algo profile and to the algo setups to make even more money and reduce the number of stops that we take. So everyone should remember a couple things. This is not the first part of the process, right? It's simply a part of the process that we use to delay, right? Delay, delay our entries, delay being overactive, and give us some insight to where the market will lift. So I'm going to go through this in a very basic, uh, formulaic way and lay out what I expect when I see a wave. So if you need to get a hold of me, this is how you get a hold of me. Let me jump off of this. And so these are the Wyckoff waves right here. White equals red or down. I try to get red off my screens for psychological reasons, and green is up. So a couple of things. Before I'm looking for this to set up, we're using two different time waves, two different time frames. On the right, this is on the NASDAQ. We're using a 15-tick Renko. On ES, it would be a 4-tick Renko. And the main chart that would be making decisions off is a 6-tick Renko. Okay? And what we're trying to do is get a head start, an insight into when buyers are stepping in and see when we can take advantage of that, perhaps a little bit early so that we can make more money, right? So number one, what we're looking for on the left, if you'll look here, I picked a place, so I cheated. I looked at a place where I know we're going to turn, right? Came over here, and I can see that the market in this next little area is clearly going to turn back up, right? So I want to go and look and see what that looked like, right? So first I'm going to go back to this 920 area. And when we take a bigger look, right, the first thing I want to do is I want to count the waves down. So this is something that I do in the room. It's a little bit of an art, but I do it in the room. I want to look at what the wave count is to the downside before I start trading, so I'm not trading too early. So if this is the apex, so remember, if I look over here, and this is the, let me find my arrow here. There we go. If this is the apex of the move, right? So normally I wouldn't know that till I look back over here, but I can clearly say this is a big push down. So I'm either going to count this as wave down, or once I look at this big push, I'm going to count this as wave down. Either way, I'm going to count like this, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to go, okay, there was my push, right? So the first thing I would have said is I expect a move to the upside or continuation. When I see a big push like this, my first thought is, can we get a continuation to the upside? The caveat there is that was right at 8:45 on this particular date, which is, I think, December 3rd. We had econ at 8:45. That's when we got the big volume punch, and it obviously failed. So I have two suppositions when something like that happens. First of all, I expect a continuation on this to take out the high the majority of the time, whether it's in a bear market or a bull market. When I see take the high, just print above. Okay. Number two, when I see a push like this, I'm expecting an A, B, C, D. And the last thing is, I know if I get a clean close underneath this, for members in the room, that means an orthodox close underneath. I would suspect that, so one of two things will happen, right? The first time, if it traps right away, it can trap back in. But I would be leery if I got to close underneath this, like it immediately failed without making a high. If we close underneath, you're usually going to get a second leg down to the right. Again, this requires a bit of an art, which is where the additional value added comes from the room, right? We don't trade the first half hour, so we would just be passengers in this particular case, right? It looks like they had more econ come out at 9 o'clock, and you got to remember all of this is within the context of a bear market, and in the room, we're primarily focused on going long. So once I see this break to the downside, I'm going to go, oh, look, we set a new low, right? So usually what I'm going to do in the room, right, is I'm either going to use this wave or this wave as my first wave down. And I'm going to mark it off. I'm going to go wave one, wave two, right? And when I get to the third bar of the third wave right here, I'm usually going to go, hey, I'm looking for a reason or an excuse to reverse, right? So I'm going to show you how that would work in real time, because I don't want to make the decision off these waves. So I'm right here at 90, let's call it 3902, okay? I'm going to come over to this other chart, this 15 tick, and I'm going to go, I want a little bit of a freebie or a little bit of a cheat. So I'm going to come back to this 9 a.m. period right here. Which is right in here. And I'm going to go, okay, I want a dominant wave up. So let me explain what a dominant wave up is. So The mistake people make when I'm coaching this one-on-one is they want to use all the data. I'm not looking to use all the data. I'm simply looking for a point at which I have a good chance of the smaller data confirming my larger view. So my larger view is 3 waves down. Now I want evidence on this, kind of tightening in the microscope a bit. Let me see what's going on underneath. Let me see if there's any early traders. So it has nothing to do with the size of the wave. A dominant wave, by definition, literally means that simply a wave down for the longs, which is what we focus on. A wave down has to have at least 3 bars, and a wave up has to have 3 bars. So what I am looking for is a wave up that has 3 bars, and I want to add this, and is engulfing the volume of the prior wave, because each of these waves are measuring cumulative volume. So let's say I was looking for the long here. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to measure, put a little line over this wave, and I go, this was close. Oops, it seems I can't operate. I've had too many days off. Let's see if I can fix that. So this requires patience to learn. So there's my last wave. You can see the volume just didn't close above. On the next wave, no dominant wave. So I'm looking. Clearly, here's my first up dominant wave. I'd mark it off right here. Okay, now I want to say a couple of things about this. Okay, first of all, remember I'm using this as a cheat, so I want this dominant wave to really come off the low, right? And then remember my second point about this is if I get the dominant wave, right, what I want, or what my expectation would be, is that we're going to take out the high above. So pause for a second. The very next thing that I'm looking for, all this is I got the dominant wave. So I'm showing the most conservative way possible. And the other thing I'm not using is I have no context. So I don't know if I'm in a good location or a bad location from a chart perspective. I'm just trying to teach how I look at it to make my trading decisions, right? So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to color this yellow, okay? So then I come back over here, and there's that yellow, right? So looking at it from this perspective, the first thing you'll notice is where we have this yellow line, there's no dominant wave from the 24, which is fine. So see that yellow line? The first thing I'm looking for is, well, can I get an apex trap on this 24 for a lift? And I have to tell you, I'd probably be looking to take this long right here. Okay, this closed right on the line. This purple bar with this little green square. I'm not going to go through all the algos because anyone watching it would just be confused, right? So I would take this trade. Now, there's a couple things going on here. First of all, you have a potential supernova, right? You have a potential supernova, and what we would be looking for is a push out. So what I'm not going to get into in this conversation is in-depth strategy for how you exit it or how you don't exit it. Most people in the room have a 10 to 15 point first scale, and that's what I focus on, right? So your risk is 15 to 20 points, usually 15 to 18 if we're going to be pinpoint, right? It's always the same on every bar. So this would clearly be our entry, and I would say this trade will trigger at this price, which would be exactly one tick above 12,187.50 on the 24. And what all I want to know is, can I get the majority of my risk off, meaning 10 to 15 points. So the most you could have gotten, because you're going to look, you're going to say, well, this clearly failed, right? So the most you could have gotten on this trade would have been 12,187 to 12,200 even, or 13 points. So you got your 10 to 15 points, and then my trailer definitely would have stopped if I scaled there, right? So again, I have no idea about location here, whether this was a good chart or bad chart or where we were on the day. The lift simply did not happen at that particular juncture, right? But it's okay. There's another piece. So remember, we're not trying to avoid all stops. We're just trying to fall within the range of our highest odds setups. And that is a high odds setup. It came down, it took out the apex. For members of the room, we're already set up on a supernova. I would have taken this and I would have gotten stopped out on my trailer, if not on the whole position, because usually this setup in most contexts are worth 30 to 50 points. It's early in the day there still, but and it looks like we're on open drive lower, trend day down there. So there would have been a lot of things kind of making me cautious there, but I'm not trying to only make it look great. I just want to see what the setup looks like. So the next thing I'm looking for, or what I would have wanted to happen, is once I got that dominant wave off the 15 tick, so I would have wanted to see a dominant wave on the 24. So let's move along to the right. And then the next thing I would have done here, right, I see it clearly fails. So I'm going to start my trade count again of the waves off the 24. Why? I want to, again, I don't want to get in where I'm in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. I want to slow the pace down. So what I'm doing here, I'm going to erase these lines as best we can. We're going to go back to the 15, and we go, okay, that failed. You keep your head because you know you're on process, right? That's why I wanted to start off with a trade that either had a small scale or didn't work as well as we would have wanted it to, right? So then we come back over here and we go, okay, well, we took the trade and it didn't work out, right? Took the trade and it didn't work out. It lifted, but it didn't pay us like we wanted to get paid. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look here. I'm going to go, oh, look, we rolled over. So I'm going to start the count again. So again, I'm looking right here. I'm going wave one, wave two, and I'm all the way over here before I'm looking for a new trade now, which puts me at 9:21 in the morning. That puts me right over here on this chart, a little bit over to the left. So for now, I'm not over here on the left. I'm back here on the right. And all I'm thinking is, where's my first dominant wave on the 15? So I'm not even analyzing the 24 at all, right? I'm letting one lead me into the other. I'm really hoping this makes sense. It's easier to actually teach this in real time than it is going backwards. So see when I get this wave right here, you can go, oh, that looked big. I'm going to take my little horizontal line right here, put it across. I can clearly see this was not a dominant wave. Again, the definition of a dominant wave is the cumulative volume in this wave is greater than the down wave immediately preceding it, and each wave has to have at least 3 bars. So as I'm moving over to the right here, all I'm doing is looking for the first dominant wave. So see right here, I get a new line. So I'm going to blow that up really big so you can see that it definitely closed over. Okay, see how we closed over? I'm going to go, on my 15 tick, I now have a dominant wave, right? So I do not want to confuse people with a ton of reads. So I'm going to put a little line right here, and I'd go, hey, we now have a dominant wave, right? And so I'm going to look back here on the 24. This is going to set up perfectly, right? And on this 24, this is my last apex. So the apex, the TnP apex is defined as this little blue triangle that points down and this little blue triangle that points up, right? This is the only algo that's delayed, right? It always forms on the 3rd bar. Every other algo is real time in the room, right? And once it prints, it doesn't erase. We eliminate that problem. And we don't need this in real time to figure out our trade. So I'm going to put a line right underneath here at the bottom. In order to be a trap, it has to trade below. That qualifies, and close back in on 1 bar. That qualifies. Now, in this particular case, not only did it trap back in, but I know because of this white dot that I have delta divergence, plus a second green algo. I don't want to confuse the video too much. And it's a TnP apex trap proper. So what I want to show you is the difference. By waiting for the dominant wave on the 15, see how these traps right over here essentially failed? I'm going right through here. Now, this won't stop all stops, right? But through here, this eliminated 2 stops that would have occurred, or scale and stop, depending on how tight you scale it. Versus when you get the trade right over here, let's just call this for easy math, 1209, let's just call it 12100 for easy math, right? And immediately you can see it takes you from 12100 up to 12143. And the original goal is going to be 30 and 50 point scales, especially when I get that particular bar there, right? And members in the room, you'll see the algo set up on 15 tick as well. I'm not going to cover it because I think it'll convolute the video, right? So then, remember, I'm going to go from this chart right over here, and the first thing I'm hoping for is when I get this, is I'd like to see a dominant wave. So now I'm going to erase this. We already know it was there. I'm going to erase the lines. And I know that I triggered in on the trade right here. I got my dominant wave. And then the first thing I'm going to notice is I'm going to go, hey, look, I got a dominant wave up, right? I can see that this wave, let's make sure. Oh, yeah, this is a 3-bar wave. So this wave dominated the wave before. And what I'm going to say here when I look at this, right, is I'm going to go, okay, I have the dominant wave, and now my mindset changes. When I look at this, not only do I have the original profit from the early peak that I got on the 15 tick, but I'm coming back over to the left, and now I expect the same thing. Just like when I get a dominant wave on the 15 and I expect the high to be broken, now I expect the high to be broken on this chart. And members in the room, you'll see the supernova sets up. So now so my first expectation from a mentality standpoint is two things. Number one, I expect this low to hold. And number two, I expect a close above this high. So what that does is it sets me up for a vision within the trade, right? So the first thing I want to find out when I'm doing my homework is that a true statement or is that a false statement? We're going to break, the likelihood is we're going to break the high. So then I'm going to go look, right? So in this case, it failed, right? That's okay. Now I want to say two things. When I get these to fail, right, I know I have to reset my count to look for a new trade. But then the next part of the question comes is, what have I gotten set up for a long again? So you got to be cognizant of two things. First of all, you got the original entry right here, and you ripped from that 12,100, 40 points or $800 a contract. Now on the pullback, I'm looking for this pullback, right? And I'm right here at 935. And I'm going, can I get a long setup? So the first thing you'll notice, members of the room, you'll notice this setup worked effectively, not as effectively as we would have wanted, but it was a very good setup. And this trade paid nicely off the 15. But we would have wanted a trap over here, and we just don't get the apex trap. So I want to explain something to someone who's new in the room or learning, right? We have multiple stages that we're looking for. What we're trying to do is, we have the basic apex trap, right? We know if essentially this traps back into this, it has a good chance of going to profitability. Profitability is defined as 5 to 10 points. There's very high odds of that happening. But what we're really trying to do, right, that's the first part of training your brain. But what we're really trying to do is go, how do I capture 30, 40, 50 points? Why that's $600 to $1,000 per contract. And that's very, very valuable, right? So what we're going to do is we come in here and we go, okay, this is the original trap. So now I have 3 candidates for a trap back in. I can use this. I want to take out this one right here. Let me get my arrow. This or this, right? So now I'm just waiting patiently. Okay, I'm not guessing. I need the setup, right? We'll go through a couple of examples. So eventually I will get set up, right? So the first thing you'll notice, so I want to wait a second here. You'll notice that this apex trapped right on the bottom right here. See this? Now I can tell you, I probably would have taken that trade. Let's see if I get stopped. And I get stopped. I'm all right. I'm not trying to hide that trade at all. But once I get stopped, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going, oh, we broke down again. So now I'm going to start the count over. Why? I don't want to get stopped and jump right back in, right? So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go 1, 2, and then I'm not going to look again until I'm in this third bar. That starts my look over. So that's over there at 939. Just go through the sequence. And I'm picking a hard sequence because the market is going down. I'm going to pick an easy sequence in a minute to show you what it looks like when it all rolls easily. All right. So I'm coming over here and I'm looking for my dominant wave. So let's reset this. So you can see it. Dominant wave. Okay. So now I go, now I can look for a trade. I've got an idea that the buyers are coming in. Right now, my only potential for a trade is this apex right here, or if I get the divergent bar star. Members in the room know what I'm talking about. And you will see here that we don't get it. It just took off on us. Let's see if we get it over here to the right. I'm going to stand corrected, guys. So let me show you what the trade was, and I missed it. It's the more complex head and shoulders trap. So remember, this is the trap back in over here, and I marked this off religiously in the room for those who aren't in. I'm going to go, we're looking for head and shoulders trap. So remember, this is our dominant wave right here. We're going to color it a different color so y'all can keep up with it. So remember, in this process, I would have just taken a stop, right, at 939. And it's going to set up for me again right over here at 941. Why is it setting up? I've got the dominant wave over here, right? And I'm cheating. And I got two things. I got a dominant wave up on the 24th at the same time. That's good when they happen together. I would expect higher. We came below. We trapped back into this left shoulder, this left apex over here. It closed in, it closed out, and it closed back in. That's a variation on the Texas two-step, guys. We would be long right here on this bar. Let's just call it 12070 for easy math, right? So immediately you can see it goes from 070 to 12093, 25 points, $500 a contract, right? But we're trying to push this, right? And you can also see here, we set up with a supernova. So what we're actually hoping for, right, outside of our initial scale, is it'll come back and set up over here on the right. So let's watch what happens. Pushes, and it just doesn't come back and set up for us. It just takes off. So this trade, realize, over here, let's just round numbers. I don't care if the stock's a little bit bigger. It's 15 to 18. We'll just call it 20. Here I lost 20. Here I took the trade, right, closed out, closed back in. I took the trade at 70, and it went from 70 to 24. $1,000 a contract or 50 points, more than covering my risk from my prior trade and giving me that extension, right? And now I've done two things. I've cleared my wave to the low, right? And I would expect higher on a pullback. So again, what am I looking for? I want to see it pull back and set up an apex trap. So I'm going to tell you how I would trade it in real time as I'm coming back here. I would have most likely taken this trade long right here. So I'm not even going to tell you that I would have won. Let's just assume a 12080 for easy math. Long right there, 12080. So, and you can see immediately, I would have lifted to 12096. So I have my immediate 20 points, 10 to 15 easy, 20 points, right? And then I'm looking for a push further out if I can get it. So on this trap back in, this one's a supernova. And normally what I would say with supernova, guys, right, and this particular structure is I would say I'm looking for 30 to 50. So from that 12080, it went to, let's round to 1215. So 80 to 20 would have been 80, 100, 20, and then 15, 35 points. So I would have gotten my 30-point scale, right? And that's what I said, 30 and 50. And I don't think I'm going to get my 50 points. I lied. We're going to get our 50 points right there. It never took it out. See that? It never took out the low. Your stop would have survived. And you would have gotten your 30 and 50. Okay. So again, I want to recap. What led us into that trade to begin with, right? What led us into that trade is we're over here looking, and at 941, right, we get the dominant wave off the 15, right? And then the next thing we got set up with a head and shoulders trap over here on the 24, which we already know we had the dominant buyers come in. And we know that we had the dominant buyers already come in on the 15 and the 24 at the same time. So I'd expect to break that swing high, and it pushes up. And then we would look, normally we would have targets up above that we are looking for, right? So there's two things that are important to remember here, right? The first thing that's important to remember is that it won't always set up. Like we'll turn without getting the dominant wave sometimes, or sometimes we'll get the dominant wave without the algo set up. It doesn't matter, right? Because we're not trading the market, we're trading the setup. First we get the dominant wave on 15, then we come to the 24 to look for it, or we use our more advanced setups for people who've been members of the room for quite a while. They'll know what I'm talking about, and we let it grow organically. Remember, we're normally not struggling to make all this fit. Like this is much easier in real time because it doesn't happen that quickly, right? Your step back, it's not as fast as you would think it would be, right? You have time to think it through. So with that idea, right? Hold on 1 second here. I'm gonna, you know what? I don't have a way of pausing this, so I won't. Give me just 1 second. Just got a message from one of my clients. So now let's go to the right, right? Let's continue using this concept, right? So now we're going to come back over here, and we're going to cheat. We're going to see that it rolled back down over here. So I want to show you something, and one of the reasons why this is so advantageous. See how we make a new high up here just by tick? That starts our new wave count down, right? So remember, we're going to be over here, and we're going, hey, we're looking for our next trade. We're looking for our next trade. This is wave one. So you're not going to get smashed on this move down because you're going wave one, wave two. This is where you're looking for a new trade right here. So we're going to go to 1109, right? So remember, what has to happen in order for us to take another trade is we have to get a dominant wave off the 24 because you're going, hey, where's our next trade? And we're not chasers, and we're very specific on our setup, right? So I'm going to be over here. I know I'm looking past 11 a.m., and here's my first dominant wave. So I want to show you something. Oh, no, I take it back. I don't have 3 waves down. No dominant wave yet. Now, no dominant wave. So notice that's over 100 points of no long setups, no long stops, including one of our best, divergent bar star. Why? No dominant wave up. So we're pushing all the way out. And now we go right over here, and I go, hey, I'm going to ballpark this. I'm going to say, hey, this is where I am looking. Everyone in the room will see that divergent bar star, and we know that it's time to go on that anyways. We'll just make it green. Okay. So now I'm going to come back to my other chart. So I know I have my dominant wave right here. See how there's no clue on the 24? And now I'm looking for my entry, right? So let's see if I got trapped in on anything here. And it's New York lunch. I normally don't trade New York lunch, but in this particular case, I don't care. I'm trying to do 2 things, manage risk and get high odds entries. So I did this trap. So I can tell you right now, I'd have taken this bar. This is a stop. I've got no problem with it, right? And I would keep going to the right over here. So see how we come down? Okay. So see this right here? I need to trap back into this in order to have a trade again. See how I don't have a trade of any sort? So the next thing that's going to happen is that's going to have to close in like that. And now I'm going to have to come back down one more time. So notice right here, this told me buyers were already ready to step in. So I'm looking for an apex trap here off to the left. Now I want to show you something. I'm going to go back over here. And I'm already going to see on this 1131 move right here. I'm going to look for my dominant wave again before I jump in. It's going to happen right here. This is where my dominant wave is. It's really right over here. And I'm hoping I'm going to get a trigger, right? So pushes up. You can see it's already gone supernova. Now, hold on just a second so we can see all the pieces here, right? See how there's no apex trap over here on the left? I'm still on process. So this is a really important idea, right? Really, really important idea. I am waiting for, right? I am waiting for all the pieces to fall in place so I can have a winning strategy. So now I know 2 things. Not only do I have the dominant wave here, I have the dominant wave here, which means I expect this high up here to get broken on the 24. So I'm hoping it'll come back in, right? And I won't take it at the high. So now I'm going, hey, I'm interested in taking the trade long, right? So I can already tell you guys, so this is going to end up being a bit of a coaching session. I would take this long right here, this trap back in off the 15. This is an example of where I would take it. I would take this long. We'll see if I lose or not. But I don't have another. I don't have the apex trap yet that I want off the 24. So keep watching. Stopped out. So it's cool. This is why I don't have anyone besides myself and a few others trading off the 15. This doesn't get traded. Now watch. See how we just broke down? Like it's clear that we just broke to the downside. See that? Okay. So now I'm going to watch. And I got to go back here for a second so that you'll see this whole thing because it's not as complicated as it looks here, right? So remember, we have the dominant wave here. We have the dominant wave here. And I'm sorry because I polluted it a little bit by taking the trap up here for continuation, right? So this is a smaller stop. It's about a 10-point stop. I have the dominant wave. I'm going to take this divergent bar star off the 24, right? So this is going to cause some confusion, so let me be clear. I'm only looking for long data because I'm so far down, right? And when I'm teaching people, I teach them on the more conservative approach to taking the trade. So the conservative approach is you're looking over here, and then you're looking for the first signal to come off the 24. The aggressive trade is anything on the 15 for triggering into the trade. You mainly should be focusing on the 15 tick with regards to the volume. We're looking over here for our trade. Okay, so this is my trade entry right here. Let's just call it 70 for easy math. And again, I'd be trying to push this trade as hard as I possibly could. And this is the reason. See how hard it pushes off to the right? It just becomes a huge trade. And you'll notice, guys in the room, it sets up a second time for supernova, right? So that comes up, clears the TnP power bar over here, gets above, comes back in, sets up. There's your apex trap. And I would say on this apex trap, I would say everyone, take your risk off, but I'm pushing the trailer because I'm expecting it to push up pretty high from here. And you can see that it does. That's a 100-point trade if I'm correct. Let's see, the entry there would have been 90, and it would have pushed to 73. So 85 points, not bad, $1,600 a contract. And if you look, you ended up with two really good entries there, right? What were the two really good entries? When it came back in, right, from the dominant wave, it went here on the right. Right, so remember your dominant wave is right here, right? So see how it set this left shoulder here, trapped underneath, closed back in, Texas two-step, closed underneath, trade, off to the races. Then over here, again, this is not that complex. It's easier to show it in real time than it is going backwards, actually. Supernova, divergent bar, stopped out, closed back in with star. Again, that's a really powerful combination by itself. And off it goes for 100, 80, 90 points, 100 points, which is what I'm targeting. And then we start that whole thing over yet again, right? So when it comes down and I'm looking for the long, let's say I'm looking for continuation, I'm going to start this process again. Here's the high, and I'm going to delay my next trade, no matter what I'm thinking, to go 1, 2, third bar right over here, right? So at 1248, right, that's where I'm looking, and you'll notice here at 1248, what do I get? At 1248, I come over here, and I go, dominant bar right here. Color. Blue. Oh, yeah, blue. Sorry. Tired. I only have a few minutes left until this TCU game starts, so I'm going to wrap it up and make it purple. So I know from this point I have a dominant wave, right? So now I'm going to go over to the left chart, and I'm going to hope that I get triggered into a long, but I want to show you something. See, from seeing this dominant wave, I already have a pretty good idea that we're going to lift, right? I'm just looking for evidence. Over here, I can either use the 15 tick if I want to be uber aggressive, right? It's harder, but if I want to be uber aggressive, I can use the 15 tick, or I can hope for the setup over here on the left in some way, shape, or form. So if you'll notice, this is where the dominant wave came in, right? So see over here how this is my left shoulder over here, head, left shoulder. So it's already closed back in. Here, I'm going to put a line underneath. This is the last power bar to form a head and shoulder. So this is going to be my left shoulder, right shoulder. Closes back in. Here, I'm going to draw this out for you guys. Closes back in over here. I'm going to make this bigger, the width bigger so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so it's this line right here. Closes in. Closes under. You know what? This really would have bothered me. It misses by a tick. And it would have really been bothersome because it doesn't take the low out here and it doesn't trap properly here. This would go under, gosh darn it. That's the answer to that question. I don't have another way of describing that. So I can, guys in the room will see a couple other potential entries, but it didn't all click together. And I probably, at least for my most conservative traders, wouldn't have gotten that long. And that's okay, right? Because what you'll notice as you go over time and time again, I'm not going to go through here, is that it just sets up over and over again. I know this is dragged on for a bit, but that's how the members in the room look. We can go back randomly or go through randomly and look where there was a turn, right? So I can come over here and go, okay, clearly the market turned here, right? So I can go back and go, well, what did this look like in order for me to be able to take this? How would I have known? How could I possibly have known that I could have taken this trade? And what this comes back to is, you'll notice before we make the low that this dominant wave comes in right here. I would have said, hey, look, guys, even though we don't trade this time frame, I would have said dominant wave. Remember, you're ignoring the negative information. You're ignoring the negative information. I would have gone dominant wave. Buyers are coming up, right? So there's my apex trap off the low after I get the dominant wave. Here's my new dominant wave. The next thing I would have said is, I expect this high to get taken out, right? So there you come back in, and lo and behold, that gets taken out. You'll notice it goes supernova, right? You trap back in. Whenever you stop in a divergent bar star, you stop it out and you trap back in again. Very high odds it's going to push. In this case, it took 3 tries. That was in the London Open. But again, you can see the giant lift there. So if you're wondering, again, how are the members in the room making so much money? It's because they're staying on process. The RR is often greater than 2 to 1, right? The success rate of being able to get 10 to 15 to 20 points for your scale is very high, right? And the pattern repeats over and over and over again, right? So that if you look at this and you come into the morning, again on the 24, like I'm always looking to the left. If I scooch this over to the morning, so here's the roll down, right? So I can see the roll down over here. And now I'm looking in that process. I can see that this is my first indication. So remember, when I get this, I'm already expecting it to go higher here, right? So now all I'm hoping for is divergent bar star, right? Divergent bar star. I know I've complicated it, so I don't know how to make this totally simple. I'm trying, but I don't know how to make it totally simple, right? So my first expectation is, hey, we're probably going higher, right? Guys notice the divergent bar star, especially when they're stopped out and trapped in and it goes, right? And then if you look as this comes up, the first thing I'm going to say is, hey, I expect that high to get taken out, right? So again, I'm looking over here. What's my potential setup? Nothing yet. But I know I'm in a potential position to go supernova. And then you'll notice divergent bar star right at the end of this consolidation and apex trap. TnP apex trap right there. Off the 24. And lo and behold, let's see what your original payout is before you get stopped. It took a while on this one, but your original push, this would have been your entry right here. Just to be clear. I'd have been a little frustrated on this one. It goes from 81. Oh, I take it back. 81.25, almost 50 points on the initial push right there. Of the 24, it's $1,000 a contract. So again, it repeats over and over and over again. So guys, the first step, let me simplify as I leave this, right? Simplification is important. All I'm doing is I'm coming over to the 15 and go, where do I have my dominant wave, right? After I get that dominant wave, I'm looking to see if I can get the dominant wave kick in on the, like if you see through that consolidation, right through here, I'm looking for the dominant wave to come in. The dominant wave comes in right here in this consolidation. Next thing, I'm looking for a divergent bar star or an apex trap, right? So you'll see as you look through here that in this case, what would have triggered would have been your head and shoulders trap right over here. Star. Here, you can see it gets trapped back in over here, stopped out over here, closed in on one bar with the star, and that's your long. And that all came off of having the dominant wave. And again, you can see that rolled you from like 86 all the way up to 62, which again is about another 50, 60, 70 points or $1,400 a contract. So anyways, my name is Simon. I'm with TRADEnPERFORM Coaching. I hope this helps everyone. You can use Wyckoff waves whether you're in my room or not. They're very, very helpful. Tons of books on Wyckoff. It's a backbone of good understanding of how volume affects markets, and I would highly, highly, highly recommend you spend time. reading it. If you have any questions, just email me. And guys in the room, I think we're going to have a kick-ass year. I'm so looking forward to the new year starting, and I'm going to watch me a bowl game. Talk to you later, guys, and have a great day.